Welcome to Her Love of Sports with your host, Katie Hamilton.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Hamilton and welcome to Her Love of Sports, where we are highlighting and promoting professional women in sports. I am very excited for today's episode. Emma Entzminger is joining us today. She is a Team Canada softball athlete. She won a bronze medal in the Tokyo Olympics, born and raised in Victoria, BC. Emma, welcome to Her Love of Sports and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so we're just going to jump into it. We're going to talk all about your experience at the Olympics, making Olympic history, and winning the Olympic medal. But first, let's start from the beginning because just a little backstory. Emma and I kind of grew up together a little bit. We played soccer on the same team for, I'd say, maybe five years. When we were younger, Emma played 2 years up. She was always a dominant athlete. And I think that anyone who knew Emma growing up knew that whatever sport you chose that you wanted to play, you were going to go somewhere with it. And you chose softball. But just like if you wanted to go to do soccer, I guarantee you would have gone somewhere in soccer too. You are also a multi-sport athlete. So just kind of describe your kind of grassroots, your sports playing up. I know you played hockey as well. And then just kind of transitioning to when you decided to choose softball as your main sport.
Yeah, growing up, I kind of played whatever sport I possibly could. Thanks to my parents, they let me do whatever. Hockey, baseball, soccer, playing all the sports just in school as well, just not as competitively, but just kind of doing whatever I could, whatever team I could be a part of. Soccer and softball were kind of my two sports as I grew up. Played baseball until I was 13, then switched over to softball, started playing A-ball, was playing A-ball as well as playing soccer with the Gorge. I think I eventually had to make a decision. I didn't want to make that decision, but I was kind of looking into where I was going to go for high school. Spectrum would have been my lead school, but I decided that Lambert Park had a baseball softball academy where I could kind of fine-tune my skills and be able to be a part of the academy while, using that as my PE class. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that. So decided that softball was kind of going to be my sport. Still played soccer in high school as well as basketball, tennis, volleyball, kind of whatever I could do. So I still got a little bit of the soccer, but softball was the main focus, just knowing that I also wanted to go away to university somewhere in the U.S. And get that post-secondary education. So many sports I played, but soccer kind of faded away, unfortunately. I would like to go back and play again at some point here, but softball was then just decided to be my sport. But I loved playing every sport I possibly could. Just all the different skills you get from various sports. I think when you're kind of focusing on one sport only, can learn or lead to many different things that aren't always a positive. So I think I'm forever grateful for all the sports I played, and I recommend that always now. So, yeah.
Okay, and then so I think I recall you when you played hockey, you played with the boys team growing up,
Yeah.
and same with baseball. You played
Yes.
baseball until you transitioned to softball, and I know that that's happens a lot for girls is they do play on a boys team, and then it's kind of like at what time is the time to transition and go to a females team.
Mm-hmm.
So what was kind of that experience for you?
For hockey, there wasn't any female teams at the time. I think there was one, but it was more of an island team, and I knew that if I went to that, it would have been more of a commitment, not allowing me to play other sports. So I think it kind of got to the point I used to tower over the boys when I was younger, so it was definitely doable. It wasn't a contact sport at the time. I think it was super competitive. Not that I'm saying female hockey at that time would have been, but I think it really pushed me and challenged me. Kind of when they started to get the growth spurts, definitely got bigger than me. I kind of had decided that I was moving into contact that next year. Didn't know if it was the best choice for me, but I also kind of had moved on from hockey at the time. For baseball, same kind of thing. Softball's grown in Victoria a whole lot since I played, but for baseball, it was kind of the only competitive level, and I think playing with the boys, and there wasn't any female baseball team in Victoria as well, so I think that just kind of ruled out any option of that, and I think it was super competitive, and I think baseball played a big part in who I am as a softball player, just with same sport. It's obviously different, but I think just focusing more on skills a little bit more than maybe the level of softball that I would have been getting at that age just wasn't high level enough. So yeah, I don't really have an exact age, but I think when I was 13 was kind of when I switched to softball, and it was about the same for hockey. That's when I stopped playing hockey. So
Right, kind of like at that age where the maturity levels and, like you said, like the growth spurts and kind of the boys getting a little bit stronger and whatnot, even though you were a force. You'd probably take all of them. How do you feel about it being a multi-sport athlete, and what advice would you give to fellow athletes that might be struggling with kind of picking one or might be struggling with balancing all the sports?
I recommend kids playing as many sports as they can. It can be a lot, but I think you learn so much from each and every sport, whether that's just physically, agility or conditioning, and just different. Your body's growing at such a young age, and it's still kind of getting to a point where you're needing to just be able to be mobile and have different strengths within that. So I think for the multi-sport piece of it, it's one, just your body being able to do all these different things, which I think is super important, because when you finally decide what sport's going to be, there are a lot of different skills within that sport. And if you're kind of just specific to one, it can, one, kind of lead to injury, which is the big thing that you definitely don't want. And then two, I just think with sticking to one sport, there's a lot of burnout, and I don't know the science behind it, but there has been a lot of research in that, and just kids playing and just getting burnt out because they're doing the same thing every single day. It's tough because I know every sport nowadays is all year round, and that makes it hard for kids to do multiple. But I think being able to just do all of those and finding some kind of balance with coaches, and, I think I think high school is a great time to decide. And like I decided that softball was my number one. So my commitment was mostly going to be there, but I was able to play all of the high school sports. Yes, that's not, the other sports aren't as at a higher high level, but you're still getting that taste of those other sports and just having that balance in life. But I think burnout is the number one right now, and that's kind of the last thing you want to do, because then kids end up being burnt out, and then some are just leaving sport and which is sad to see, because they it's nothing to do really with maybe the sport itself, but just like they're losing that passion because it's too much for them to handle. And I think parents included, make sure your kids are deciding what they want to do. I think that's a big part of it right now too, is every parent wants their kid to be the best and play for a national team and go away to university and get all these things done. But you should be having those conversations with your kids. Is this really something you want to do? And making sure that it's their dream, because that has caused a lot of just a lot of challenges within it. Yeah. So I think that's also a big part with just what the girls or boys themselves want to do. So,
and I think that's amazing to point out what you just said there, that for the athletes and the kids to make those decisions and be vocal of what they are passionate about, what they want to do. I think that's huge. And going back, like sometimes my family and I we'll talk about like soccer, the old days and stuff, but you could really tell in your style, at least in soccer, to play. And I think that's why we played together quite well, even though we were on opposite sides of the field. You're up front, I was in the back, but the way that your hockey showed in the way that you played your sport. Okay, so let's transition more into your softball. So you went to Lambrick, you did the Lambrick program, then you got a scholarship, I believe, to San Jose State. So let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I think when I decided I wanted to go to Lambrick, I knew kind of the end goal was to go to university, get an education, and being able to play the sport I love while, getting a degree. And I ended up getting my undergrad degree in kinesiology. So I think that experience in itself was amazing. I was debating between a couple schools, didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. Went down to the campus in San Jose and just knew it was the fit, the culture of the team, the coaching staff, where it was located. I think that was a big thing for me. West Coast, easy flight for my parents to come down. Definitely independent and liked being able to be away from home a bit, but still having them close by, and then being able to come to tournaments and events. So I think that experience was incredible. I I think it's shaped me into the athlete I am today. It was a big part of my transition just into a higher level of softball and being able to kind of then compete with the national team. So I think I learned a lot there, and it was an awesome experience, and I have friends that I'll cherish forever. So sad to be kind of off and done with that part of my life and chapter, but it's something that was really special to me.
How did you find balancing being an athlete and a student at the same time?
Yeah, that's a big question that everyone asks. I think the university and athletics set you up for success. They're giving you all of the resources you need, whether that's academic advisors, study hall hours. My coach was big on family was first, school was second, and then softball was a distant third. And I think it was kind of showed in just our culture as a program and a team. And it was pretty cool because you're there as a student athlete and the importance of education before the sport. So it was challenging at times, but I think also just growing up as a kid, I played, like I said before, I played multiple sports. So even the challenge of balancing school and every sport I played was kind of part of it. So I think time management is a huge skill to learn, but our university definitely set athletes up for success with just all of the resources they needed to be successful. So yeah, I think it's a challenge for some, but we were given all the resources to just be put in the best position.
Perfect. And I guess some advice for other girls who are looking at doing university and being a student athlete like yourself is probably to research your schools, see which one's your best fit, and know what you're getting into beforehand to set yourself up, right?
Yeah, once again, your choice of where you want to go. And, I think everyone shoots for the highest and everyone wants to go to Division I, but I think it's less about the level you're playing at, but more what's the best fit for your life in general. You want to love it. You want to get the education. You want it to be in the right area. So I think, don't always just automatically shoot for the best. Yes, that's the most ideal, but it's got to be the right fit for you. Otherwise, you're going to be there and not be happy, and that's the last thing you kind of want.
Let's go into your road to being on Team Canada, the national softball team. We'll talk about the Olympics soon, but what was kind of your journey of getting on the Canadian team and the road to the Olympics?
Yeah, my dad and I are kind of joking about this the other day. The only reason I went to a camp, the junior national team camp in 2013, was because he convinced me to do it, which I think is kind of funny because at the time I really didn't know much about the national team program. They didn't really know much about me. And he's like, you should really do this. And I was super hesitant. And, it's something I kind of talk about is just getting uncomfortable. And there's so much growth when you're getting uncomfortable. So I think it was a very uncomfortable moment for me to go to that tryout and be a part of that because it was something I'd never done before. So, yeah, I made the junior national team in 2013 and 2015. So I played in the World Championships for those. 2016 was my first debut, I guess, on the senior national team. So I was the alternate while we had Worlds. Definitely a different role at that point than kind of where I'm at now. Just young gun on the team, was kind of there for the development side of it, trying to soak up everything I possibly could, learn from the vets, just take in that whole experience and just get the most out of it. Moving into 2017, I actually ended up getting cut, which was a tough part of my career, but I think really motivated me to the next level. And then I made the team in 2018, and I wasn't an alternate. I was a solid member of the team at that point, and from then on, kind of have been a key member of the team. And yeah, that's kind of the path to get there.
That's your path.
Yeah.
And then, so you were fresh off winning an Olympic medal in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. Amazing. You guys made history as Canada's first medal in softball, correct?
Yes.
In the Olympics,
Yes.
which is absolutely amazing. I mean, I watched every game of yours. We were cheering for you. It was very emotional. It was awesome. What was the experience like in Tokyo?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. It's crazy to think that I was there, 2.5 weeks now. But just an amazing experience. I think for most of us, it was our first. So we had been to a multi-sport event, like a Pan American Games, but never on the Olympic stage. So just being able to represent your country on such a huge stage, I think with COVID, obviously things were a little bit different, but for most of us, it was our first and we had nothing to compare it to. But just incredible being able to do it with that group of girls. They're just amazing. And, we pride ourselves as a team on our culture, and being able to do that with that core group. 4 of the girls on my team played in '08 and lost in the bronze medal game, and that was tough for them. So for them, they were rewriting history, and being able to kind of do that for all the girls that had never been there before, but also the ones that this was their last go, their last run. They're all retiring now. So I think just that was a super special moment, being able to kind of dogpile or whatever that celebration was at the end of the game with that group of girls was just a memory of like for a lifetime. And it's crazy to think about because it was not that long ago, but I'm home and my life's very different now, but it's something that I'll cherish forever. So
winning a bronze medal in the Tokyo Olympics, you got to bring home some hardware, and we have it in studio. Let's take a look. It is absolutely beautiful. What's it like having hardware from the Olympics, a medal?
Yeah, I don't know if it just still doesn't feel real. I think like I know it's real and it's in my hand, but this experience has been so incredible that I'm home and I have it, and people are oohing and awing over it.
Yeah.
So I think it will hit hard eventually, but I think it is pretty cool. It has women's softball on the side, which I think is super special as well. I mean, I've always watched the Olympics and seeing athletes receive a medal and how cool that is. So to be able to have it is pretty special. And yeah, I'm just excited to be able to kind of show the city and everyone in sport this special piece of hardware.
What would you say, besides, of course, winning the bronze, if you take that away, what would you say would be one of your most memorable or the highlight of your time at the Olympics?
I mean, I think just getting on the village and kind of being a part of something bigger than just the sport. I think the Olympics were extra special this year, just as the world's been kind of very scary and unknown and just not the best right now and in the past couple years. And I think that was a cool moment to just bring all countries together as one whole and be able to go to a common goal. We're all shooting for the podium, each sport, each country, but I think it even brought just the world together to watch their country or their teams. And I think that's super special because it's something just kind of more sane and normal. Things are obviously looking up in the world, but I think that was super special for most of us, if not all of us. Doesn't matter the team, sport, country, we all put our lives on hold for this extra year. So I think being able to get the postponement moved to a new date and being able to do that, I think was incredible. So I think just in the bigger picture of how that was and what that represented was super special. All of it was amazing, but I think that was just cool to be able to be a part of that. And no one can say they've ever been a part of a COVID Olympics because it's not going to be like any other one there has. So that it was my first, and I have nothing to compare it to, but I think it made it also pretty special.
So your family is very supportive of you. They always have been. Shout out to Johnny Entzminger out there. So I know you're so close with your family, and it was amazing to even be able to have the Olympics with COVID going on. But of course, not having fans, not having your friends and family in the stands. Did you feel that, or was that missing at all?
It was kind of one of those things where we had been playing with no fans for the past year. So I think for that part of it, it was just another game. I think, in all honesty, the pressures were less. There was a camera there, and you knew that the camera was on TV, but you don't really think about how many eyes are really watching that game. So I think just it was more of an intimate kind of feeling with just being so connected with one another on the field. Like there were no outside distractions. It was kind of just us as a team on the field. Definitely hard for the family. There was about 5 of my family members that were going to kind of head down to Japan, and they were all bummed about it. But I think at the end of the day, the Olympics happened, and that was the big thing, that if it was going to be with no fans, but I got to compete in it, that's all we really wanted. But it also brought my family together at home, just watching the games together. My dad had a little get together with about 50 of them at the house and to watch the Australia game. So I think it was special for them, extremely emotional and nerve-wracking. But I think it was super special, and I knew even though they couldn't be there in person, they were supporting me back home, and I have an amazing support system, and I couldn't have done it without them, just all of the support over the past 5 years of this journey of the Olympics. So I think would have loved to have them there, but I knew they were watching at home, and I knew I'd be able to come home and kind of celebrate that moment with them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but so the last time that softball was in the Olympics was 2008?
Correct.
So it's not guaranteed sport in the Olympics each year. And I'm not sure, is it confirmed that they're not going to be at the next Olympics in Paris?
Yeah, so they took it out after '08. The U.S. and Japan kind of dominated in softball. They didn't really feel like it was competitive enough. So many years without the Olympics, Japan got to be the host country. The host country gets to choose 3 sports they get to bring in as demonstration sports. So baseball, softball is their number one. Mm-hmm. So they chose to bring that in. But then now it was kind of just in for that. Now moving to 2024, it's not really a top sport in Paris, so they won't choose to have it, which is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. You're gonna, as the country, you're kind of hoping for a sport you're guaranteed to medal in, or at least bring in some sort of revenue with whatever that might be. So 2028 in LA is kind of the next one. It's not 100% for sure in, but it's kind of talk of LA. Baseball, softball is huge in the US, so I think it's probably going to be. But we're hoping once it gets in 2028, we can kind of keep it there. I think we did a pretty amazing job as a world and the 6 countries that were there to just show and prove to the Olympic Committee that it is a competitive sport and it is a popular sport and people watch and love the game. I think most games were about 2 runs apart, if anything. Mm-hmm. They were super competitive. I think just showed how great the sport is. And I think we got a lot of just media with people being like, okay, this sport is pretty incredible. And, these girls are super talented. And I think it's sad to say, but until you're on that world stage on TV, people don't always see that. So, like I said, not guaranteed for 2028 yet, but looking pretty highly likely that it will be. And hopefully we can keep it in there after 2028 moving forward. I won't be a part of that moving past 2028, but at least for next generations, I'm hoping they get the opportunity to represent their country on the world stage. So
that's amazing. And you guys making history. I mean, it just, of course, going to the Olympics, working for the Olympics is just huge in its own. But the fact that you have such a small window, and it's not guaranteed every 4 years. It's like, okay, here's our chance that we haven't had since 2008 to be able to perform, to, like you said, to show the world, show the country that softball is a dominant, amazing sport. You guys should be very proud of what you've accomplished and being role models everywhere. So I think it's really exciting. And those games were great. The bronze medal game, I believe you started off the runs for Canada. You batted in
I had
2
2-run RBI.
To start it off. That was just amazing. I mean, my family, we were like crying and we're like, yes, go. It was great. 2028, what's kind of your viewpoint? You just got back from Tokyo, kind of time to wind down, disconnect, do your thing. And then what's your now focus? What's your next goal?
I mean, for the softball side of things with the national team, everything's so unknown. Our head coach just announced actually today that he's retiring, which we knew. It just is now kind of a public knowledge. Mm-hmm. About half the team is retiring and kind of moving on with the next chapter in life. So I think as a program, it'll be a big development kind of year. So we don't really know the next steps other than there's a world championships this summer coming up. But yeah, for me, this has just kind of been some time to recharge with friends and family, step back, kind of celebrate with them, and going around and just showing off the medal and being able to just thank everyone that supported me along this journey. I'm going to be helping out at actually Lambert Park with the softball baseball academy, and we're starting a new softball program called the Glory, which is kind of a travel ball team. And also a program called Next Level, which is a winter training program. Kind of I'm going to be in charge of player development and just growing the game more in Victoria. I think the levels kind of just plateaued a bit, and I think we just kind of need to get some new blood in there. Going to be more of a female-based mentorship program, getting ex-softball players that have gone away to university, whatever the level might be, and Lambert Park alumni as well, to just come back and give back to it a bit. So I think I'm definitely looking forward to that, just using my platform, an Olympic kind of platform, to give back to the community that's given me so much. I think, if I can just inspire one or two girls here and there with whatever that might be, it might not be playing softball, but, wanting to be a doctor or whatever that kind of is, just showing my path and showing my journey and kind of the things that you need to do to get to the next level. Definitely softball specific for the fundamental side of it, but also just the mentorship part of it, of having somebody as a role model and just to look up to and hopefully inspire the next generation. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a new thing we're just starting, and it kind of fell into my lap coming home. But that's kind of my next step. So we'll see where that takes me.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see where softball on the island goes. I think, you're the perfect role model for it, the perfect one to be doing this. So I think there's some exciting stuff to come to the island. So you have been kind of the younger one on the team and the more veterans who will be retiring and aging out. And now you're going to be probably one of the veterans, and you're going to have these new young kids in. So what's kind of that feeling for you, being like, okay, I might be the one with the leadership and teaching these up and coming players?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting, I think. As a younger player that's come through the program, I've had an incredible group of women that I've been able to look up to, and just how they lead and how they kind of carry our team and our program. I think there's been, even with just the whole history making season here, there's been so many girls that have come before us that have led the path and paved the path to where we are today. A lot of those girls didn't get to compete in the Olympics and kind of, show us the way. And I think it's super cool to just see how many people are supporting us. And I'm going to continue to play because I love the sport and I love playing for Team Canada. So I think for a lot of girls, that's huge to them. Yeah, it's not on the Olympic stage, but for a lot of girls, it's been their dream to represent Canada. So it's exciting to be able to kind of use my experiences with this whole national team and us making history, and just showing them what this program is all about. And we've spent so many years building this culture with just hours and hours spent just to have genuine people on our team and loving each other and caring about each other. It's so much more than sport. And I think we have a chance to make history in 2028. So just paving that path for them, like girls have before me, and just leading through our experiences. And just, I feel like I have the leadership skills, and I've had different programs where I've been a leader on the team. And I think I've been around now, and I was a younger one on the team, but I was a leader in my own way. So I think it's just maybe my role might be changing a little bit more on just now other leaders are moving on. But I think, just leading by example on how I operate and how I carry myself.
Who would you say growing up was your favorite athlete, or who you looked up to?
Cassie Campbell and Christine Sinclair.
We actually had Cassie Campbell on the other day.
Yeah, I saw that on the Instagram page. That's awesome. Yeah.
We'll have to do another one, have the two of you. Christine Sinclair. And then Christine Sinclair just won a gold medal. When you were in the Olympics, did the Canada or the other teams have any interaction with any other sports, or were you just sectioned to your Canada softball?
I think there was a bit of it, but just with COVID and the way it is, you're kind of limiting that interaction. Soccer wasn't on the Village at the time, because they kind of were playing games in different venues. So we didn't get to see. That would have been my person that I would have loved to see. But I definitely saw other athletes, Jose Bautista, baseball. So just, it was cool to see other athletes that, Canadian athletes and just athletes across the world.
And for those who don't know, where is Softball Canada based out of?
Ontario kind of is the base of where like the offices are, but as a whole, we're definitely don't really have a home per se. We kind of call Softball City in Surrey our home, where we do the Canada Cup as our home tournament. But we're usually just traveling around the world and around the country. So wherever we might go as a team, but we don't really have a home base.
Okay. And I think that's interesting to point out, is because you were born and raised on Vancouver Island in Victoria, and we are a smaller demographic, especially compared to Ontario or even the mainland, is to just see an athlete in a team sport, be able to get to where you are and to make those national teams. So it's like, put yourself out there. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you're from a small little island, you can follow your dreams and make them come true.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's it for this episode of Her Love of Sports. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our special guest, Emma Entzminger.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Emma. To catch all the latest, make sure you follow us on social media at Her Love of Sports and check out herloveofsports.com.